Hello and welcome back to the next One Piece review and discussion. We are here with the next chapter release, and my goodness, it is a absolute tragedy. This is what we've come to know with Oda and his very sad backstories. It's going to be unfortunate to see what unfolds here and kind of get a glimpse into the life that Loki has had to deal with since birth. Now, we don't see all of it yet, but we do get to see actually a lot of what the world was like hundreds of years ago, because as Loki began retelling the story of that awful day, we actually jumped even further back to see what Harald was up to in his youth. So, without further ado, chapter 1153, The Birth of Loki. We have a continuation of Yamato's pilgrimage, and it is on her return journey back where she meets up now with Kiku, who is now the daimyo of Ringo, which is very nice to see. But last we had left off, we had got the massive Conqueror's attack had gone off by Eam. Everyone in the underworld was aware of the situation now. Most of the new giant warrior pirates, Zoro and Sanji, were heading up in the lift. Gabon had explained to Luffy, your use of Conquerors is going to be important here, and went to speak to the other Straw Hat members about another person who could use Conquerors. Sanji, believing it was him, got absolutely let down. Turns out it's Zoro, go figure. But Zoro was even more confused, like, am I using Conquerors? And Gabon was like shocked. He was like, that's probably even worse. People who use Conquerors haki or haki in general are meticulous and refine it. Be more aware, basically giving him a bit of a stern telling off. But before that, Loki was all chained up, was like, look, you can use my power, I know how to fight these guys now, I can help. Hiruden's like, not a chance. Luffy just asked him to join his crew. Just out the blue. Very Luffy. But Loki refuses. But there was a whole thing like, you just wanted to let him out type of stuff and you want to see how he fights. But Hiruden's like, look, he's a war criminal. It's not happening. But it is Gabon who actually says, look, no, you actually need to free Loki. What happened that day, Hiruden, it's not what it appears to be. And that Loki needs to tell you what happened. So the rest went off. Luffy and Hiruden stayed with Loki to explain what happened on that awful day. So Loki arrived at the castle with Ja Rule there, and as they entered the throne room, Harald was being repeatedly stabbed and pierced by his own guards. We don't know the full story yet, but we saw a lot of attacks going off. We saw the chest that probably housed this devil fruit that's passed down, something dangerous, something legendary apparently in this devil fruit. But we didn't get much of a glimpse of the rest of the scene because we jumped over to Gabon's perspective, which is him meeting Shanks on Elbaph and just having a relax in the hot spring. And Shanks had a Holy Knight symbol on his arm. So before he'd gone back home to the East Blue and saw Luffy and lost his arm, what we now assume to be deliberately lost his arm, the mark was there. He had trained, he had somehow been branded or for whatever reason marked by Eam in such a way, and Gabon had called him a child of faith or a child of destiny. So something about Shanks is so important. He just wanted to be a carefree pirate with Buggy, and that was the biggest thing for me. It was like he just wanted to be a pirate with Buggy. He just wanted to chill, but he's constantly now surrounded by what's happening, that he has to kind of follow this path now. So interesting to see that. But we ended actually jumping even further back, 109 years ago, to Harald as a young man. And what we see is he knew Dory and Broggy when even they were kids, and we see a very young Dory and Broggy and their childhood with Harald. And it said that even amongst the giants on Elbaph, like Harald was in a league of his own with his ancient giant blood. Like he was a monstrous strength giant, his high status as well. He grew to be very arrogant and unruly, and we see him just on a ship, just being like, outside Elbaph is so boring, you know, everyone's weak, puny, you know, oh, this is just ridiculous. And they arrive at the kingdom of Bunt in the New World, and they see there is a circus, and in that circus is a giant woman being imprisoned by like the circus itself, being like, this staggering woman is 10 feet tall, you know, her roar is thunder. Meet Ida. And she is like got like these horns, she's trying to like frighten all the humans, like she's towering over them. And we can see Harald being like, to turn like one of our giants into just some attraction, and he decimates the circus, leaves the kingdom in ruin, rescues Ida, and it's like, do not worry, they will never mock you again. I'm the king of Elbaph. You know, I couldn't just sit back and watch you take it. You know, it was a slight to my homeland. And then all of a sudden, Ida just bitch slaps Harald and is like, what do you think you're doing? And we can see the horns are actually just an aesthetic. She doesn't have the ancient giant horns. She is just a regular giant. And everyone freaks out. And she's like, look, turn around and go back and apologise. And we see a side now with Ida being like, look, like, they helped me. You know, I was on death's door, the brink of death, and they fed me, they gave me a job, they let me work. You know, I was just repaying their kindness. And now you've come and ruined it. You are going to recover, and you are going to go back and apologise and help rebuild this city for what you did. You know, just because I was born big doesn't mean we can treat others differently. She's got a very kind heart and good nature about her. And we can see that, you know, they begin rebuilding, you know, Harald screams at all the giants to help, and they begin to see the sides of humans that they hadn't seen, you know, the sophistication, the use of fabrics and like buildings, and they begin to sort of party. And it is as they go around seeing other islands, you know, seeing Ida explains like where she originated from in the South Blue, on like some island called Samuani, if I've pronounced that right. And we can see that, you know, all the time upon the sea, you know, it just didn't work out, and she ended up where she did. And they see like people talking about the red line. You see like people talking about Elbaph and being like, whoa, like we might have judged you too harshly here. And it is over those 4 years on the return to Elbaph that even the giants are like, man, like Harold's really chilled out here. Like he's a different dude entirely. Like this is kind of crazy. And it is when obviously they return 105 years ago that Harald declares, as king now, he is frequently going to travel out to sea and build relationships with the neighbouring islands, not just for reconciliation, but to learn from their cultures and to prosper not only their islands but ours. And we can see them being like, Dorian and Broggy are just out there running wild, like, what are you going to do? And he's like, look, I go way back with them too. They'll always have a good like understanding with me. They have never failed once to treat humans with fairly and honourable respect. So we don't need to worry about them. And he declares, you know, we still can stick to our warrior ways, that's fine, but we may want to reconsider some traditions, you know. If other countries feel threatened by it, you know, we need to be more reconsiderate. So we can see Ja Rule and that are like, you know what? He's coming along, this is a good step. And we see Ide explains, you know, Elbaph is truly blessed. And we can see he starts doing diplomacy and building deeper connections in culture, and he starts, you know, writing and learning, and we can see the maturity now coming out of Harald. And it is 81 years ago in the eastern fishing village where Ida has given birth to Hyruden. And as, you know, Harald goes to say, you know, him and I'd want to get married, the elders are like, no, she's not recognised. She is not of the, you know, pure-blooded descent. Not a chance. And they're like, you know, I'm sorry, you know, this boils just down to our culture, but we can still be close. I still want Hyrule to be close. And she's so, like, positive about it, being like, she can stay in the village here. Hyrule can still see, his dad. Like, isn't that great? And we immediately meet Harold's future bride. Complete contrast to how I'd looked like. I'd was more just like, common, regular, mild-mannered giants, like very happy-go-lucky. This woman, Lady Estrid, looks like she's concocting very malicious plans. She looks like she's got a very evil way about her. She seems very royal and up and coming. And they all declare, she is a woman truly fit to be queen. And, she's got this sort of swag about her. And she is apparently grown up in Alcohol Village, which is on the northern side of Elbaph. But she immediately is like, we're fated, you're the love of my life, we're going to now do all this. And she said, shut all the windows, we're only to be served on the finest of silvers and, the greatest of jewels. Bring all the gold into the room, trying to treat them like royalty. And she's like, oh, there is a horse of good fortune we have brought. Their name is Ashura, and it is a fine steed worthy of a king. And the giants are like, dude, like, that horse has got 8 legs. Like, what's going on? Obviously a reference to Sleipnir, Odin's horse, which is I really like from Oda here. And you can see that Estrid is now really sort of showing her sort of royal lineage now, or trying to splash out with all the gold and riches, and says about, leave us to it. So another couple of like years go by. This is now 70-ish years later from where we are, and we can see, they are having difficulties at sea, but Harald is still building relations and advanced navigations now, and intrigued by other countries and how they've built ships. And we can see that he's talking about having met fishermen, and he's telling stories about what it was like there. And Estrid gives birth 63 years ago to Loki. So we see that, she's just given birth to a healthy young boy. She's like, let me see him. I want to see my son's face. And he is like got these like devil eyes, these horns. And Estrid immediately freaks out in like a panic, saying how horrible this child looks, like he's a devil. Something's possessing him. Like, the king is not to know of this birth. Tell Harald that I had a stillbirth, and we are going to cast this child into the underworld. And this is how it was that the Prince of Elbaph stretched out his arms, but no one took his hand. Estrid took Loki and cast him from the Sun Realm and threw him into the underworld. Just cast him off. And it is heartbreaking, because the narrator here says the most heartbreaking or the most unfortunate souls are those that are rejected from birth by their own mothers. And we see everyone's like, what are we going to do? And they're like, look, that child was not born today. I forbid anyone to talk about that child. And we can see she's in a panic. She's scooping up gold and gems and stuff. And one of the guards rushes in like in a panic, and it's like, there's a noise coming from the realm of the dead. And she's like, what? The realm of the dead? What about it? And the chapter ends with poor Loki as a infant, literally just out the womb baby, crawling back up the Adam tree from the realm of the dead. And we can see it is blistering cold. Like, the poor child Loki here is just suffering. And we can see he's actually killed one of the beasts down there. Like, it's decapitated already. Like, this kid literally had just come out the womb, and he's already killed one of the beasts down there, and he's climbing up a tree. Like, it's so unfortunate, but we hear that pretty soon after Estrid got ill and died. But before she did, she said that she disposed of the child because she was foretold long ago that one of Harald's sons would kill him one day. And Harald was really struggling with like democracy now and rebuilding. He's like, the world government are blocking him at every direction. He actually doesn't seem too fussed with Estrid right now. He's more bothered about building relations. But it's interesting at this stage, the world government is still blocking whatever he's up to. So he's not made that deal with them where then Loki turns on him to a degree. But we can see Ida's still around, younger Hyrule now as a boy, being like, you've got a younger brother, like, isn't this so exciting? And he's like, no way, he's my little brother, not a chance, mum. And he's like, look, don't say such awful things. And we see a young silhouette of Loki here, and it is said that, meanwhile everyone's dealing with this, from this point on, any misfortune that struck the island was chalked up to Loki's curse. And I just think that's so sad. Like, Oda's really got a knack for writing very, very sad backstories, as we've seen like many, many times. Just name any character in this story. I don't think anyone's got a happy backstory, but this one particularly is pretty rough. Like, from birth, cast out. And there's theories already thrown out, the reason why Loki bandaged his eyes is because, his mum cast him out because of them. So he hides his eyes now because it's his mother's love that he's looking for, or something like that, because it's just like the reason why he was cast out in the first place was because of how he looked. So he keeps them hidden now. So can you imagine that reveal now? Adult Loki just takes off the bandages and unlocks whatever devil fruit he's hiding there. But we obviously end here. There is a break next week, but I think we're going to get more now of Loki's sort of childhood and growing up. Maybe see more rocks, hopefully. But we are definitely getting into what happened to Harald on that day and why Loki was accused. But thank you for watching this far. I do appreciate it. Let me know what you thought of this chapter, and I'll see you guys next time.